Alright, hi, welcome to the video. This is a sketch that I made this morning that I really like how it turned out, and I'm gonna paint it. But it really got me thinking about references and how I personally use references when I'm drawing and painting. So this is the picture that I found on Pinterest that I use as a reference for this piece. And there's some very obvious similarities between the piece and the picture. For example, the hairstyle. Obviously, I got the idea from that picture. When I first sat down to draw, I actually I was trying to have the mouth look more like the picture. So you can see in my process that at first I drew teeth, but I was really hating the way that turned out. So I just simplified and kind of stylized the face a lot. So the face doesn't really look like the picture, but it ended up looking pretty cute. And so that got me thinking about when I'm using a reference, there is kind of a fine line between how much am I going to take from the picture and how much is going to be my own. So making the decision to simplify it and take the teeth out actually allowed me to follow through with finishing the picture that I don't think I would have. I think I would have scrapped it if I tried to get those teeth in there. So that got me thinking about the ways that I use different references and kind of what I'm learning about taking liberties with references, letting go of the feeling of, this has to look exactly like the picture, or focusing too much on the picture and therefore losing yourself along the way. So this is another reference that I found on Pinterest that I painted a little while back in my sketchbook. So this is an example of something more realistic and something a lot closer to the original picture. Everything down to like the proportion of her hand, the pose, the way that her hair is. I guess I kind of thought of it as like a photo study to practice, proportions and hair and expression. This is a really important part of the process of learning how to paint faces and draw faces. But it's not, it's kind of boring. It's just like the picture. It doesn't really have a life of its own, other than, I learned a thing or two probably in the process and I enjoyed it and it's simple. And so this is one way that I use reference photos in order to progress myself as an artist. And this is another example. So, you can tell that I took the kind of the pose, the clothing, the bandana, the way her hair is. It's obviously not as close to the reference as the one that I just talked about, but it's very similar. And I did take some creative liberties, like with the colors and the patterns on the clothes, but for the most part, it's pretty similar to the picture. Okay, here's another example. This one, I think, looks the least similar to the picture. You can tell the face is completely different, but the hand and the way she's sitting with her elbow resting on her leg, I totally relied on the photo in order to kind of come up with that pose. So that's definitely one way that photo references help me a lot is, the proportion of the arm and the way she's sitting to make it look natural. If I don't have a photo to look at and I'm just trying to draw somebody sitting, it can come out all kind of wonky ways. All right. This was kind of another photo study. It's not as similar as the other one, but I think this is actually a good example of not using a reference well, because when I was drawing this and painting this, I think I was too focused on the reference and kind of lost myself in the drawing of her face. So I guess what I mean is that, you know, I look at her eyes and I try to draw her eyes, and I'm looking so much at this that I'm not paying attention to the fact that the proportion is off. Yeah, the nose looks like a pretty similar shape to the picture, but I was too focused on making the shape look exactly the same that I didn't make the nose big enough. I was trying to make it look realistic, but the proportions ended up being off, and not in a way that was on purpose. Whereas with this one, the proportions are different. Her eyes are enlarged. The proportions are off, but it's on purpose in kind of like a stylized, not realistic way, like making the eyes big and the nose small to kind of have that stylized, cute look. So my end-all be-all source of references for my art is Pinterest. This is just the greatest tool that artists can use to find like the most specific, the best variety art references and photographs. And so one reason why Pinterest is such a great tool for artists to use is that it has visual search. So if you click on a picture and you zoom in on it, it's going to come up with other pictures that look really similar to it. So if you're looking for something specific, you can find it that way. Also, if you scroll down, there's going to be ones that are kind of the same idea, like similar expression, similar shade of lipstick. This one has similar haircut, but they're also, you know, a little bit different. So if the original picture is close to what you want, but it's not exactly, you can find other options beneath it. All right, so I printed up the sketch that I did in Procreate and then traced it onto my light board in red colored pencil. It's really light. But I think that's all that I had to say about references, so I'm just gonna put on some music and paint this cute girl.